Multiple choice question: what will school look like this year? This, or this, or this, or all of the above. We explore what school districts are doing and why. We talk to teachers and to parents about their concerns, their hopes, their ideas. It's all next on a Living St. Louis Back to School special. I'm Jim Kircher. We've got some tough decisions about the new school year in the midst of this pandemic, and some districts have already decided they won't be opening their buildings. They'll go online, learning at home for now. Tough decisions for districts, for parents, for teachers, for kids, trying to balance what's good educationally and socially with what's good for public health reasons. Sometimes it seems we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What we would like to do and what we think we might have to do. Some districts have said what they plan to do on the first day of school, but that might have to change. And remember, we're talking about different districts, different counties, different states, different levels of infection, even different politics. In Jefferson County, the Fox C6 district's plan is typical of many in the area. 3 possible plans. If COVID rates are low, in-person learning with everybody coming to school. If the pandemic is somewhat worse, a hybrid learning plan. Classes would split, half the class in school, half at home on alternate days. And if COVID rates are high, they could just send everybody home and have at-home virtual teaching and learning for everybody. The Collinsville, Illinois Superintendent Brad Skirtich put out a similar set of options on the District 10 website.
The district has created a return to learning plan with multiple options that allow us to pivot depending on the situation and still meet our students' academic and social emotional needs.
Districts began developing plans a while ago without knowing if the pandemic was going to get better or worse. The Hazelwood district last week was one of the first big districts to announce it would begin the year with the all-virtual plan until pandemic conditions improve. St. Louis City Schools, however, have been offering parents only a choice of in-school 5 days a week or 2 versions of virtual learning at home. But if students are allowed into the classrooms now or later, most schools, public, private, and parochial, will likely be following guidelines like those put out by the St. Louis County Department of Public Health, imposing social distancing between students and teachers, sanitizing and possibly using face masks, minimizing interactions, limiting large gatherings, limiting the number of outside visitors, conducting regular health screenings, and having a plan for responding to infections.
I have a tremendous amount of concerns.
And Bal Shockham is a public health professor at St. Louis University.
My public health hat is, it's really scary to put our kids in that space. We're putting them in harm's way in ways that we never have had to before. Also, we're making essential employees out of our teachers in a way that they hadn't been trained as public health professionals.
She's not alone in her concerns. There are parents who will not be sending their children to school, even if they can. And in most districts, that's okay.
Basically, I think every district will have some sort of a virtual option.
As CEO of the School Cooperative Education Plus, Paul Ziegler has been in touch with more than 50 area superintendents about their plans.
There's a lot that's changed in the last 6 weeks, and we fully anticipate it'll change a lot in the next 6 weeks. So while we say those plans could change after that first day of school, after that first week of school, they may actually change between when they release them and the following 3 weeks after that. It's going to be a constantly changing situation as we learn more about the virus or learn more about best practice.
Since that interview, several more school districts have decided to start the school year with the all-virtual plan. This pandemic is going to be with us for a while. It might get better, it might get worse. That means not only do districts have to have several plans, so do families. Anne Marie Berger talked with some parents about what they're having to deal with.
As moms, is there ever a period where you're like, I kind of don't feel stressed about this? Is it just always on your mind about what's the fall going to look like? What's school going to look like? What's sports going to look like? Is it just always there?
Always.
When I think about my concerns for August, I think a lot about my experience homeschooling in March and at the end of the year last year. It was really rough for us because I've been working full time and then trying to keep up with all of my son's schoolwork, and he's going into first grade this year.
I am definitely in the camp of wanting to send my children back to school.
Jillian, what about you? Your kids are younger.
My rising 8th grade daughter can do a lot on her own. She's self-driven, very organized. If anything, I need to push her now to be more social. My son has some learning challenges, and he really needs, in-person instruction, in my opinion.
Some communities say, it's up to the individuals to make their own choices. If I were to make the choice, I would send my kids. If that is a choice that is given to me, I am going to send them. They are both healthy. They're not in high risk categories.
I was leaning towards not sending my kids to school. I am just recovering, if you guys saw me coughing, from Corona. So I had it at the beginning of this month, and there's still some residuals. I'm cleared, but there's still, lasting effects. So I know the impact and what that feels like. I wasn't hospitalized, but the first several days were a lot, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Well, I'm glad that you're doing better now.
Yeah.
Is the rest of your family okay?
Yes, fortunately, they are okay. If you think about it, if we do send our kids to school and then a teacher gets sick, do they have to take their sick time? Is the district going to cover their medical expenses? And, and then what sub is going to want to come back into that school and that environment if they know that they've had an outbreak?
I struggle with wanting staff and teachers to be safe, because they're the ones that will most likely be harmed if they get sick long term. It almost feels negligent for me to choose to send my kids to school.
That's a tough position to be in, and you feel like no matter what decision you make, it's the wrong one, or you're not thinking of the other enough.
It's really hard to not know what to do.
I think the thing that's challenging right now is the different messages. There's different messages at the state level, at the county level. I would appreciate some uniform guidance so that I can understand what's expected.
I think it would be wonderful to be able to have some type of kind of umbrella of guidelines, but I think that's a hard thing to define or to create when we really don't know enough about this virus.
As parents, it's just going to require us to be flexible, to be patient.
I'm sure all of you, read or heard what Governor Parson said last week on the local radio show about how kids they need to go to school. They're going to get it. They're not going to be hospitalized, but they're going to get it, and we just need to move on. Mm-hmm. As parents, hearing that, what did you think of that response?
Well, so I thought that was somewhat reckless, although I think I understand, like, on a surface level what he was trying to say. But I think a lot of what he missed was, like, every kid has family at home. My younger son actually has like an asthma-like illness. He's too young to actually be diagnosed, but he has respiratory issues. So, yes, my older son could go to school and get it, and maybe he's not the concern. But what happens if he gives it to my youngest son? We just, like someone else said, we just don't know enough about this virus to really, be making statements like that. It was disheartening.
Careless was a word that popped into my head.
Yeah.
Do any of you have an issue with your kids having to wear masks at school?
Not at all.
Nope.
No.
I feel like I need to be a voice for the inequities that's my biggest concern, is the privilege that it seems that all of us have. Fortunately, if we're able to have this call from the comforts of our homes or offices, we've got internet, we've got power, and some type of support system, whether we're single parents or not, but there are so many that have varying issues, whether it's not having access to Wi-Fi, not only just because of a monetary thing, it could be regionally. And that's another thing, like teachers, if you think about the logistics of that, if they have some kids that come to school during the day, and then they have some that are there at home, how are they supposed to serve both of them? So they're doing not only double the work, they're having to come up with creative means to be able to deliver the same type of quality content, to students who are receiving this remotely.
As a mom, it's very stressful when it's like
I think everyone
don't
wants
know.
Normalcy. Everyone wants normalcy, and there's not a normal anymore.
Normalcy isn't one of the options I got from my daughter's school, though. Like,
no,
we all want it.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's not.
People are
it's
looking
not an
that
option
way,
for us.
but it's not. That's what everyone. We have to wrap our minds and hearts around what we knew in the past is in the past.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out what's the most safe, kind, for all of these roles. We all have a role.
And practical, because sometimes things that are written on paper theoretically look great, but is it really going to be able to be?
Can you implement
that?
Kids who do go back to school buildings are likely to see a lot of changes in their classrooms, their lunchrooms, even in the hallways. The Jennings School District has put in place a lot of measures in a school that it opened for summer classes. Ruthie Zell takes a look at some of the things they've been doing.
Gore Elementary in Jennings is home to the school district's hybrid in-person and virtual 2020 summer session. It began as all virtual in June and shifted at the start of July. Superintendent Art McCoy explained the new protocols, which begin even before students reach the front door.
We have parents dropping them off by car. They fill out the online survey first as the first screening technique to see if they have any symptoms, and that's by parent from our website.
How are you doing today?
Temperatures are taken at the door by a healthcare professional who also asks everyone entering if they have any of the symptoms listed in the online survey. Hand sanitizer stations are at every entrance. The water fountains are off limits, but water dispensers and disposable cups are positioned around the school. Masks are supplied for those who need one. Students are provided 2 meals. Breakfast is grab-and-go style. Hot lunches are prepared in the cafeteria and delivered directly to classrooms. Gatherings in the cafeteria are not allowed.
Rule number 1 is to prevent COVID from coming in as best you can. But then you have to assume that your screening will not do that. So then you have to make the other rule even more important than the screening, which is to have structures in place that are so strong that transmission will not go out of control or occur in schools.
To that end, a designated room is on standby in the event students come down with apparent COVID symptoms and need to be isolated and possibly sent home. If a student tests positive for COVID-19, officials will contact trace, and everyone who's been within 6 feet of that young person will be required to quarantine for 2 weeks. And if 3 to 5% of a class or the school becomes infected, the entire school will close for 2 weeks. As a hybrid summer session, students are divided into 2 groups that attend in person at Gore on alternate days.
Every student gets a laptop so that they can continue their learning at home because we are instituting an A-B day schedule where every kid you see today is on a B day and they won't be back until one other day. So they'll skip a day and go the next day.
Look at the picture.
The summer school is taught by a mix of district faculty members and volunteers from community partners, including 2 Men and a Vision, which mentors kids in foster care.
So you gotta get out of check.
The St. Louis Chess Club, which is teaching chess strategy.
There you go.
And the St. Louis County Police Athletic League, which is teaching boxing techniques. As for other school district teachers who may have misgivings about returning for the fall semester,
from the very beginning, our district reached out to all of our staff to say, please contact HR to let us know if you fall into the technical high risk category, if you are over 65, and this is voluntarily. If they do not have a doctor who will make a doctor's statement to say that you have a high risk factor and should work from home, then we expect our staff to work at school. Then we as a district have an obligation to make some procedures to still keep that person safe.
the approach taken in Jennings was developed for its unique set of circumstances. It's a work in progress where the most valuable lessons are being learned by teachers and administrators.
I believe that there really are no experts to a historic pandemic situation, but the only way to become an expert is to become engaged and to not assume anything. And so I don't know if we will have to close down again, but we are prepared to do so and to do a better job with virtual learning if that has to happen.
Whatever decisions are made about a particular school will not only affect families and students, but also obviously teachers. Adjustments will have to be made, whether they have to teach online or in the classroom. And Anne Marie Berger wanted to hear from some of those teachers about, well, what they're thinking as this new school year approaches.
I'm Kara Jackson. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Fairway Elementary in the Rockwood School District.
I'm Albert Sanders, and I teach pre-K in St. Louis Public School District at Adams Elementary.
And I am Amy Houston. I teach kindergarten for Hancock Place School District in South County, St. Louis.
How do you guys feel as announcements are starting to come out, plans are starting to sort of give some indication of what's going on? How are you all feeling going into this?
I'm still on a holding pattern, only because we really don't know. Because a month ago, we would have said, yes, back in classroom would be fine. But now, you know, that was a month ago, and things have changed so much in this last 3 or 4 weeks that I still think things are going to change more.
I would agree with that. I'm excited to get back into the classroom. I miss the kids. I want to see them. I want to be there. But as a parent, I'm also concerned about sending my child back into that. But I do think that for my school district in particular, they have a lot of things in place that make me feel more comfortable about it.
What worries you about going back to school? Any concerns that you have for yourself or for the students that you teach?
I have concerns that students think that going back to school is going to be some kind of a return to normal. And I think that's a lot of parents have. And it's just not going to look like school should look, like what we want our classrooms to look. And I think you guys would agree with that. We're going to have to put in place procedures that don't they don't allow for collaboration as easily. They don't allow for the group work, you know, just our everyday procedures that we go through, whether it's, okay, good morning, come, let's gather at the carpet. We can't do that. So I feel like there's going to be a certain level of anxiety that kids are going to have over those changes and what they expect and what their norms are.
My biggest concern is actually the guardians of our students, because we have a lot of grandparents who are guardians, and I think that's across the state, but it's across the city, and who are in a vulnerable population. So my biggest concern is the guardians.
We've heard our governor say our students are going to be fine. They're going to get it and they're going to be fine. But that completely ignores the other people that child comes in contact with. So if they're an asymptomatic carrier or whatever the situation is, and then they bring that home, and now they've given it to their parent, or they've given it to their grandparent, or they've given it to their aunt or uncle, whoever their caregiver is, and that person becomes deathly ill or dies, that child, I don't want my students to have to feel that sense of responsibility, because if you want to talk about trauma and what's best for kids, like that situation, I mean, you would never place that blame, but what their emotional well-being and how do they internalize that situation.
Our governor's statement also didn't include teachers in that scenario of catching it and being fine and getting it and recovering nicely and moving on.
Also bringing it back to our own families.
Amy and Albert, you know, I know how important kindergarten readiness is. That's got to be really difficult when you're doing it from afar or doing it 2 days only a week in person. How did that go for you all in the spring? And are there any improvements, any changes that are being implemented for this school year?
I would say in the spring it was very difficult. I used several different avenues to get instruction to them. I was doing Facebook Lives, reading them stories, or recording myself and posting them on YouTube and emailing the links. Because we know that in our district, not all of our students have access to internet and devices. Moving forward, we are sending home devices with all of our students every day. And we surveyed the parents and asked who has internet access. And for the families that do not, we have partnered with the county libraries, and we've gotten hotspots for all families to have access.
And that digital divide of not having access to the internet and all of that, that has been worked out for your district anyway.
Yes.
If there are children in your classes that have been exposed to the virus, or God forbid you actually have the virus, what happens? Do classrooms shut down for 2 weeks? Do all those students and the teachers have to quarantine for 2 weeks? Do you get sick time?
I think that's something that all districts going to have a problem with, is that if a teacher tests positive, then what happens? Yes, we'll teach from home, but what if you test positive and they want to bring in a sub? We have a lack of subs in most districts as it is, and we have a lack of teachers. In
Right,
the state
he's going to want to say, I'll come in while the classroom's been exposed to coronavirus. Sure.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I have
then
very serious concerns about subs also. Like,
Right.
and we also, I mean, we do not have subs, so that's a big concern also.
I hope it's not a back and forth where the kids go in 1 week, out the next, or in for 2 weeks, because that's not good for the kids. They need a sense of normal, but what is normal? Like Carol was saying earlier, normal is not seeing people in masks, not talking to your teacher through a mask. That's not normal. Not eating lunch with everybody.
Do you feel that parents are supporting you all as teachers? That, a lot of people that I know are like, well, I have to work and I can't teach my kids at home, and I'm right there with them. It's hard. Do you feel that you're getting that from parents, that it's your responsibility to pick up where they can't?
In my district, I guess it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of our parents are essential workers. And they could be grocery store workers, from doctors to nurses. So they're essential workers. So yeah, and they have to work to make a living. There's no unemployment check for them because they have to work.
It just seems like exceptional times should call for exceptional measures. And I know that puts a lot of families in a difficult situation, but it does sort of feel like we're trying to create a win-win out of a lose-lose. We're just create something that we hope will function at its best, that, takes every person into consideration. I can't wait to be working with students again. And I don't really care what that ends up looking like. Obviously everyone's safety is the most important thing. But I sure miss being with them every day. We're teachers, right? We rise up. We do what has to be done. So
all the time. That's what we do all the time. No matter whatever's thrown at us, we have to do it, and we're going to do it. No matter whatever, like you say, no matter what platform, no matter if it's for 1 week or 2 weeks virtually, and the rest, we're going to stand up and do what we have to do for our students and families.
Finally, we have a longer conversation with Paul Ziegler of Education Plus, a resource for more than 50 area school districts. And we wanted to know what all of those superintendents were talking about with each other as the new school year approached. Keep in mind, these are superintendents from districts large and small, urban, suburban, and rural.
This is unlike anything. When I look over the last 13 weeks, the way that our districts have come together to really talk about how do we keep kids and communities safe, and how do we deal with this and make sure we're still providing education services for our children, it's unlike anything I've ever been a part of.
You can't make everybody happy on this. There's going to be pushback, and maybe for good reason, no matter what a district decides to do.
Absolutely, and I think that we summarized several weeks ago on one of our calls, where we really look at and we understood that no matter what decision we make, it's going to make a portion of our community unhappy. If we wear masks, there's going to be certain people within our community that say, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If we don't wear masks, people are going to be like, that's the dumbest thing. So we know that whatever decisions we make, there is going to be pushback from part of the community. But keeping kids safe or putting the best practices in place as possible to keep kids safe, to keep our community safe, to keep our teachers safe, that's really the goal of whatever we do to bring our communities back.
People, a lot of people, they want their kids in school.
I would think 99% of educators want kids in school. We believe, kind of cooperatively or collectively, that the best place for kids is school. For some of our kids that come from a disadvantaged background, it's a great place to make sure they're receiving two solid meals a day, to a safe environment. For some of our folks that need to work, it's a place for their kids to be protected. So we know that we really want kids at school, but being able to do so in a safe manner is really what the challenge is. And how do we balance that equation of having kids within a safe environment with those protect, but also making sure that we're keeping them safe from the pandemic?
Yeah, I think one of the big concerns, and this becomes a concern for the in the trenches educators, is what kids aren't learning, what they're supposed to be learning at this particular age, and the difficulty of making that happen. And that's parents' concerns too. Are my kids falling behind?
Absolutely. Delivering instruction virtually, it's very difficult because so much of what kids pick up on from an instructor or from that education give and take, the body language, the facial expressions, the different pieces, that becomes very difficult in a virtual setting.
And I hate to say it was an advantage that this hit at the end of last school year, but at least teachers and districts and principals have some experience in the virtual teaching that they didn't have before.
Absolutely. We learned a lot of what to do, but also what not to do, I think, through last spring.
We always like to direct people to the resources that are available, the answers to their questions. But I'm guessing in this case, there's no central place to answer specific questions other than the individual school district in which you live.
Absolutely. And I think you can find general information all over, whether it's through the CDC, even through the guidance that we put together with the working group, kind of as best practices for districts. But each individual district will have their plan that's unique to their district. Whether it's something slightly different they do in transportation, a slightly different schedule, what grade levels they utilize, what type of schedule, there will be differences. And while there'll be many similarities in the fact that they will all address, are students going to wear masks? Are they not going to wear masks? Are teachers going to wear masks? How are we going to socially distance? What are our cleaning procedures? All districts will address those issues, but they all might have a little bit slightly different approach to the way they ultimately implement.
And that's our Living St. Louis Back to School ? Special. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Kircher. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Living St. Louis is made possible by the support of the Mary Rankin Jordan and Eddie A. Jordan Charitable Foundation and by the members of 9 Network.